Hi, everybody. Welcome to NextGen Podcast, a podcast focused on professional services and disruptors in the space. Today, I'm joined by one of my past customers. I'm so excited to welcome Jenna to the podcast. Hey, Jenna, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Molly? It's good to
I'm
see
doing
you.
really good. It's about to be a snowpocalypse here in Cleveland, so we are trying to stay warm.
Yeah, we're getting hit with the same storm here in Austin.
I know it's wild. I can't thank you enough for hopping on. It would be really nice just to introduce yourself for the audience and listeners, just so they have some understanding of your experience in professional services.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my name is Jenna Weiler. I'm based in Austin, Texas, where I've lived here coming up on 9 years, originally from Philadelphia area. And I started my career in services back working in event ticketing, actually. I worked for a ticketing software company called New Era Tickets, which is a subsidiary of Comcast Spectacor, and then that were purchased or merged, I should say, with their sister company, Paciolan. And I was a ticketing consultant. So I consulted new software or ticketing software implementations. And that's where I was really first introduced to professional services as a whole. But when I moved to Austin and got out of live entertainment, I started working with a company where we implemented Certinia as our PSA. And that's where I really got into the back end of professional services and started working in professional services operations. And that's where I got introduced to Molly, you,
Yeah.
because we brought OpMentors on as a consultant to work with us post Certinia implementation because we needed a little bit of help. Our implementation was done very quickly, just based off of the requirements that we had at that space. And we needed some fine tuning and some advice on that fine tuning of where we wanted to chip away first, because it felt like we were trying to eat an elephant, and that was really hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I have since recently made some changes, and now I'm working on building my own brand in a personal care line. So that's been really fun trying to figure that out. But yeah,
It's
that's my
amazing.
background.
I love the experience. Like we have these parallel paths and even in the health and wellness category and what you're doing on the side, we're so excited and kind of cheering for you along the way. So while we are professional services consultants, I absolutely will keep you guys in mind. What we're doing on the podcast is really highlighting kind of career milestones for folks as they grow in their career and kind of the advice that you would have even as a professional services operations leader when you're evaluating tools or when you're realizing you're ready for a consultant like OpMentors. Can you talk a little bit about how that was internally as a team? When did you kind of come up from air after an implementation and say, I think it's time to do like a rediscovery and kind of roadmap some ideas? What did that look like when you were ready to raise your hand and ask for help and bring in a consultant?
Yeah, what that looked like at the time was we had made this big shift and really kind of grew up to in terms of PSA and got something that we needed this tool. But the rushed implementation resulted in a lot of out of the box functionality that we just wasn't the right fit for where we were at that point. And being on the tool at that point, I want to say about a year, we didn't have the skill set in house to make these changes. And
Mm.
our stakeholders, so our PMs, our consultants, our engineers, were basically just like, we hate this tool. Why did you put this in? Why did you make this change? And to hear your stakeholders say that kind of stuff, like
Hmm.
that's a big red flag that we've
Yeah.
got to make some sort of change. You've got to pivot here. And we were in a single year contract cycle with Certinia, but we had just gone through this massive implementation, and a rip and replace was just like, we're not doing this again. Like we're not stepping back to where we were before. So then the other options are figure it out yourself. We didn't have the in-house expertise, or find somebody to help us. And that's the route that we took, was like, let's find a consulting company that we can work with that can really hear these problems that we're having and help us dissect them into smaller pieces and figure out, okay, where can we get some immediate bang for our buck? Where can we immediately help out our stakeholders so that they're feeling much fewer pain points throughout this process, while at the same time have this larger roadmap around this. These are the steps that we're taking now to get to this end goal over here.
Yeah.
That was really how we approached it. And when we were looking for consultants, we did a lot of interviews with a lot of different companies around what they could offer and what they couldn't offer. And I know this is going to sound ridiculous, but a lot of it was gut feel of like, okay, these people seem to get us
Hmm.
versus this feels very salesy. And even just meeting the team at OpMentors and being able to talk to them of like, these are going to be your people. That was really helpful in the process of figuring out
Your
who's going
team,
to be our
your
team.
consultants.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who we're
yeah,
going to be working with. Are they going to
yeah.
be able to understand us? Can we talk to them? Can I be honest with them and not have them be like, ugh,
Oh my gosh, I know.
harsh? Like,
I know.
so
We see that all the time, right? The trust barrier of
yeah, exactly. It's a great way to put it.
let's just like pull down the walls and tell us everything, good, bad, and ugly, what's going well, right? I even remember we were on site together with a bunch of sticky notes, the old-fashioned way. We said, let's just start. Like, let's just get all of
Yeah.
this out there and then find the themes, find the priorities. And we actually kind of unearthed even more than
Oh yeah,
what
there
we
were a lot
thought
of
day
sticky
one.
notes. There were a lot of sticky notes on that board. And a lot of it was what I learned that day was how much process it was versus system, where we were trying to basically have the system solve process issues.
Mhm.
And even just having somebody else in the room that can step back and look at it more objectively and be like, okay, so that's not actually how you want to approach that problem based off of my experience or whatnot. Like, let's stop
Yeah,
trying to use a tool to solve a people problem.
perfect.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and just have that objectivity of a third party to be able to like see that through different eyes. That was really helpful. That meeting was really monumental in starting that process of moving forward. And again, taking small bites to start to eat the elephant.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And honestly, even since we began that process together and how OpMentors is even crafting deals and projects with customers, we are really doing this open-ended consulting approach like this that's resonating with more and more customers because from our lens, gone are the days of like a very detailed requirements document and all these use cases and things to test and move forward in the system. That old-fashioned delivery model really is gone. And we're doing more of this consulting approach in our SOWs with clients. And nothing's overly detailed and scoped. We are saying we're advisors, we're offering all these advisory services, and it's really resonating with the existing customer base. Which I actually is like, it's kind of one of those aha moments for us where you don't have to scope every little thing. We're just having a great time meeting customers, evaluating pain points, and delivering value. And when you feel that value, you just continue in the consulting engagement.
Yeah, exactly. It's the relationship that is the base of it all.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So
because when
for
it
like a customer of your size, right, can you highlight even like number of users that you had, how big your PM group was, things like that, so that folks can relate to how large the organization was, but then also like what kind of cadence did we get into for evaluating pain points, rolling out a change, kind of just that roadmap process. So that some
yeah.
people think it's a quick fix and they want to get in and evaluate something small. In the industry, it's called like a health check.
Mhm.
Whereas other customers are really like, we need that long-term partner who can dive deep into our business, listen. Can you like talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, yeah. So in terms of org size, we had roughly 350 users in Certinia. So it was a pretty big implementation. There were a lot of different teams using it, and that was across PMs, consultants, data engineers, technical engineers, like all executives, leaders, PS ops, like everybody.
Perfect.
So and we actually probably needed more licenses than that, but that was just where we were able to start with in terms of companies' appetite to how much they wanted to invest initially. PM amount, we had about 80 project managers at the time. So the rest of the group was split up. I think we had about 80 consultants, and then the rest is just a mix. I'm not recalling the exact numbers at this
Sure.
point. Um, but I forgot your question,
And
Molly.
that
I'm
like the
sorry.
roadmap side, kind of like how did you guys approach like addressing these audiences and rolling out changes to each of those groups?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So when we initially did the implementation, it was pretty much like everyone's getting the same thing. We have to standardize. That was one thing that we were dealing with as a legacy problem, was that everybody was a special flower and a unique snowflake, and everybody's job was super unique. And when it comes to services, especially services at scale, where you're looking at multiple regions and 350 people in your org, like there has to be some level of standardization that
Right.
goes in place, especially when like you're trying to pull reports out of this. And if
Right.
everybody is doing something different, like what are we measuring here? Like,
Yep.
what's going on? So we, our initial pass with implementation was to standardize. And then as we standardized and built in our permission set groups and kind of put people in buckets, that's when we started to feel a lot of growing pains of like, well, this isn't working for me. I can't do this. This isn't working. I don't like how this is functioning, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we did a lot
Mhm.
of follow-up sessions with those individual groups. So there were 9 people on my PS operations team that we were all kind of taking pieces of this, and everybody was aligned with a different group. And we would have pretty consistent standing meetings where we would intake their feedback. We were making iterative changes on the fly. So like little things of like, oh, this word needs to change, or we need a checkbox here. Or can you adjust the pick list values? Like that type of stuff we were doing pretty quickly. But
Mhm.
we were getting a lot of other asks about workflows and automations and that type of stuff. And that's where we started to bring the roadmap in of like, okay, so what is the most, like, what's going to get the most impact with, like, what are our low hanging fruit here? The most impact with the least amount of work. Let's get those things done first. But then how do they stack on top of each other to get to this end goal of where we're trying to get with the overall management of the project? Like, do we need to update permissions?
Yeah.
Is this related to like the way the screens are laid out and the tool works? Do we need to add additional steps in the workflow? Like, what are we doing here? And then really kind of starting to lay those out. And what we were learning in the process is like there needed to be major updates to our contracting structure as well,
Mm-hmm.
which is like the very beginning when it
Beginning.
comes to PSA. Like that's what
Yes.
feeds PSA. If your
Yes.
contracting structure is not set up in an efficient manner, then everything else is just kind of messy after that.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
we didn't have a lot of control over changing the contracting structure. So we were really just kind of dealing with what was in place and knowing that that big piece needed to shift, but
Hmm.
getting ourselves set up so that when that big piece did shift, that we didn't
You're
have
ready.
a lot of things to do to clean up for it, that we were
Yeah.
just ready. So when you make that change on the Salesforce side and adjust our contracting structure, PSA is already set up to automatically set up the projects the way that they need to be to set them up for the right billing set. And then like it
Yeah.
just goes from there.
I love that. Yeah, that's the really like honestly, it's a secret sauce of OpMentors and our consulting style is asking all of those questions up front too about tell me about your sales process. Tell me about how you're scoping services. Even on the opportunity, what are you capturing about the
Mm-hmm.
contract? Anything that you can do to like alleviate that data input and make sure that it's accurate up front. And then the automation can pull it all the way down, and you actually have really good governance about what was sold to who and when for how much. And then that project kickoff is super seamless, hopefully, right? Everything that you have is
Exactly.
finalized. Yeah.
Exactly. And like the other part about all of that is sauce, like everybody's favorite subject.
Hmm.
But really, we wanted the project creation process, who could edit, what things were being edited, that needed to all be systemic.
Yes.
Like that, I didn't want anybody on my team touching anything. Like it was too risky. And
Yes.
my team felt the same way because I had a team of really experienced professional services operations people. Um, and that was one of the things that we were hitting on from the very beginning of like, it has to be automated. It has to be automated. It has to be automated. That
Hmm.
there is no workaround here. There's no manual touching. Like it has to be automated. And the support came from OpMentors when we needed that push to our executive team of like, well, we'll find a workaround of them being like,
Yeah.
really, no, there is no
Right.
workaround here.
Right.
The
Right.
work needs to be done in the system to support this.
That's so amazing. I mean, one of the kind of highlights that I just remember about the team as well is just learning about how the contracts are structured and that aspirational, we need to add T&M into the business. And that was a big guiding light for just expanding the capability with Certinia, right? That
Yeah.
being a core function. It's absolutely offered within the core functionality. We cover it when we do implementation projects for how do you service this? How do you bill? How do you recognize revenue in all of these models?
Yeah.
But how unique to have an opportunity to add in something like that as well when you're in that optimization phase and road mapping, when there's really something strategic as that guiding light to add into the infrastructure. So I just
Yeah.
remember that being like really key and interesting about the
It
project
was.
too.
It was. And it circles back to that point that I was making of like we were trying to set up like Certinia could do all of that stuff. We
Yeah.
PS operations and PS was never a roadblock in getting T&M up. It was getting the SKU set up, getting our accounting systems to be able to recognize the revenue on those SKUs differently than what they were doing historically. How are we feeding that information into our RevRec tools? Like It just was like a
Hmm.
big shift for all the departments around services. Well, we're
Yeah.
like, we're ready for it.
Oh my gosh, I know. And it's kind of interesting, I guess, from advice to a user, like a PSA user, stakeholder, champion. How would you approach a project kickoff today if you knew it was really challenging to get the Salesforce admin team and or the CRO aligned to the services priorities? When we did our kickoff together on site and it was just our team, could we have done something differently? I know obviously like all customers and dynamics are different, but would any work have been saved or lessons
Yeah,
learned or collaboration?
yeah, my lessons learned on that. So I don't know if you recall, Molly, but we OpMentors started working with us like in the midst of a leadership turnover
Hmm.
within our department. And it we didn't have that executive stakeholder buy-in because that communication channel that was coming from PS operations going directly up to our VP was broken.
Hmm.
And we really that's like the biggest thing I would say, especially when it comes to like massive change management, is like the executive team needs to be bought in and see the value and see the vision and understand where we're going. And there needs to be alignment there. Where we were getting the okay to go ahead with it, there just didn't seem to be a real true understanding of like, well, why are we doing this? And it was showing up in ways where PS operations is talking about the materiality of professional services revenue, and the VP of revenue is like, well, why does that even matter? And it's like, okay, something is broken
Hmm.
here.
Right,
There's a
right.
piece missing where
Yep.
like you need to understand why this matters
Yeah.
so that you now can it really was more of like an education that I think there was a gap there.
Hmm.
But again, with that leadership chasm that was happening,
You
I
can't
feel like
predict when those things change either,
but
right?
that's where I feel like I really should have pushed harder with the connection that I did have of like, I need your time. I need you in these meetings. I need you to understand what we're doing because
Hmm.
you're the only avenue that I have now to the executive leadership team.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
that,
mean, we think about that too. Is there, like, if you were to get creative with me for a moment, like, what is that? We talk about ceremonies all the time, our sales to service kickoffs, our project kickoffs, our UATs and deployments. Is there a ceremony just based on all of your experience and services that you think could have been created or even just, this is applicable to anybody who's doing project kickoff and needs their sponsor involved? Have you seen anything unique? Or if you were to get creative and think about other than the true just ask, hey, I need your help and be in a meeting, is there something missing?
yeah, I mean, the only thing that's really coming, and it's not super creative, is to have honest like an education or a sales pitch that you're giving to that executive leader. Like, I need to get some space so that I can tell you what's going on, that you can really see the full picture and why we're asking for these things. And I come from a consulting background, which I told you already. So
Hmm.
my whole thing is like, I need you to understand the why, because if you don't understand the why, nothing else matters after
Right.
that, because then you're just kind of like, yeah, okay, if you want to do that, do that. There's no backing behind it. There's no emphasis. There's no feeling. There's no nothing. It's just
Hmm.
air at that point.
Yeah.
And that's, I feel like figuring out how to get them to understand that why. And at least in the company that I was in, that was via PowerPoint decks. And even if I wasn't able to get a lot of FaceTime, but sending them like a pre-read of like,
Uh-huh.
this is what's important, I think goes a long way. Because I wasn't going to
Mhm.
be able to get a lot of FaceTime with that VP,
Sure.
especially as like a lower to mid-level manager. There's
Yeah.
no time in their calendar for me.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and
and
how
there's also,
unique, right? To be able to take on a consulting partner and relationship within the budget that you had and to be
yeah,
able to do something like this. I mean, it's true value and influence across an entire organization. And
yeah.
that why is so important.
Yeah, and it was interesting because like there was definitely buy-in because there was budget given, there was the tool was purchased, like
Oh,
people
yeah.
understood why it was needed, like the leadership team understood why it was needed, but when you get down into like
The
these are the reasons why
refinement
we're
and
making these decisions,
mhm.
that piece was missing.
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
think that an education plan around like enablement around that to at an executive level or C-suite level would have gone a long way. to help them understand like the larger picture of, rather than just me being like, we're gonna, like, this goes into our financial reporting. It's something that you should think about. Like, that
Sure.
really, all the details behind that, I think, or not all of them, the high level important details, I think could have been presented in a much more consumable fashion for
Mhm.
a C and executive level.
For sure. Yeah, that's super interesting. And especially, we talk about Certinia's product roadmap and really try to influence additional product expansion. So like you said, there's more teams that can use Certinia. They've really gone forward with this amazing customer success cloud, which sits right alongside PS.
Mhm.
So Customer Success Cloud is more of the playbooks about accounts, renewals, the management of that cycle and relationship. And it's really, really great next to a Salesforce account opportunity and then that visual tracker of all the projects going on and how you're servicing.
Yeah.
So even from that standpoint, that value prop of not just the tool, but the process.
Yeah.
And that's where we spend a lot of our time.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. So tell me a little bit too about taking all the skills learned from Certinia PSA, running a team, running a company, etc., and like what you're up to now, because that's super exciting.
Yeah. No, so I love to be in the weeds, which I think was a little bit of to my detriment. So I loved PSA. I loved like learning all the ins and outs and how it works and why it works and what screen I could go to make changes and all that kind of stuff. And my team, I I they weren't quite as interested in digging in as I was. So they learned a lot from me, which I appreciate. I'm glad that I could like fill that spot for them. Um, but it also made me realize that like as a leader of a team, like that's not the right spot for me to be in. I'm supposed to be a lot more strategic, a lot more uh long-term planning and letting everybody else be in the weeds. And I was having a hard time kind of like getting out of that spot. And the result was like some pretty extreme burnout.
Mhm.
We had, I would say, like a 3-year cycle of running at full speed. And
Yeah.
I tapped out. Like I just couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah.
So I took a break and took the summer to really kind of think about what I'm doing and so what I want to do and
Yeah.
figure all of that out. And I started a small apothecary brand in October where I'm selling, making and selling soaps and body butters and hopefully some additional products. But where this really came from was I need ritual to ground myself and center myself. And um, there are plenty of products out there to do that, but like I really wanted something that meant something to me. The messaging, the sense, what to use. I hadn't mentioned it, but I also have a background in holistic nutrition. I went back to school in 2018 to become a nutritional therapy practitioner, and that has really kind of shaped my ideals around food and body care and just like anything that I'm putting on my skin, which is our largest organ.
Yeah.
So I wanted to find something or that I really liked. So I started making some soap. It's also was a really big creative outlet for me.
Mhm.
I've always been super creative, and I feel like that had been really tamped out when I was so deep into technical work.
Yeah,
So
work with your hands again. Get out
yeah,
from
work with
behind a
my
screen. Yeah.
exactly.
Hmm.
So I started making these soaps. Started with soap because that's really where I am at this stage in my life. That's about soap and lotion is like about as deep as I can get into ritual in terms of the time that I have for myself.
Hmm.
Uh, and I've been really liking it. And I started sharing that I've been doing this. I set up an Instagram account, which is like so outside of my comfort zone, but it's fine. We're doing it. It's
You're doing
good.
it. True to
I built
life.
myself a website and I made about 150 bars of soap and sold them all in December, which is kind of
Amazing.
wild. It really blew my mind, like how well it all sold. So now I'm in like the remaking process and I'm going to basically have a relaunch in February because it's taking me some time to get everything made
Going
back up
again.
and get some inventory. But yeah, trying to build this brand that's really authentic to me. Which I'm still sorting through, like what is that? But it's
Yeah.
been really fun to be creative and to make something and to feel really proud of it. Not that I didn't feel that way in my PSA world in my previous corporate life, but like when you do it for yourself, it's a little bit different. There's a little bit of a different flavor to it.
Yeah, of course. Well, what's been so amazing about the podcast is also giving folks a just a platform to tell their story and what they're focused on now. And very similarly, folks who have been Certinia PSA users come onto the pod, tell me a little bit about their experience, but now what are they doing in new roles? And that's like the just the best part about the journey, I think, really, right?
Yeah.
You have this opportunity to stop, pause, refine, optimize, change your life. And there's a skill set here that is always at the foundation of how the economy works and how services work or products that you sell. So it's really cool that like there's mastery in your experience and now you can go thrive with your passion project. And
Yeah. I
I
mean, it's
really
really,
hope it becomes something
thank,
exciting,
thank you. It's
Yeah.
interesting because I find myself being like, how can I record my time on this to make sure that I know how much and like what am I going to pay myself and how am I going to build this into my prices?
Yeah.
Like it's a lot of
Yeah.
that.
And like taking just like a moment to pause to create that plan
Yeah.
because if you know you've 1 month of really interesting production and result and tie that to an annual calendar and you're gonna have busy season around the holidays and certain things like Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, everything coming up. So
Yeah. Yeah.
you've got it. I'm excited.
Yeah, what's been really fun about it is learning. I know I
Yeah.
feel like I sound like such a square when I say that kind of stuff, but like I am like I can't get enough information and trying new things and learning new things and doing things I've never done before. Like it just
Mhm.
really excites me and
Yeah.
having that opportunity to learn something new because like I am learning every single day I'm learning and like soap making is chemistry, which like I've been chemistry since I was in college. So
Yes, yeah,
this is
seriously.
right.
Right. We
So
were saying like, what have I been up to? And like roles change and things. And at home, the question's always, well, are you still learning? Are you showing up every day and something new is on your plate? You're learning a new skill, you're refining something. And that's the best part about jumping in and
yeah.
going in head first. Just keep learning, soak it
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Well, I can't thank you enough for hopping on the podcast today, telling your story. We're so glad to stay in touch and be cheering for you along the way.
Thanks, Molly. I really appreciate it. It's
You're
been fun.
welcome. Yeah, yeah. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you again soon.